Praise the Lord. Here I would like to discuss Matthew chapter 24 verses 15 to 35. It's containing a lot of matter. I would like to cut short all the topics in a small section. And here basically is talking about the Antichrist and the Battle of Armageddon, and all this context is talking very um, lightly. And we can say 18 the sign of defeat of Israel by Antichrist, and the 19th sign is we can see Great Tribulation. And during the Great Tribulation, it's like a different things. Like basically the tribulation and the defeat of Israel by the Antichrist we can see all over this part, and those the abomination of desolation. So these things we can see in terms of end times what Jesus Christ was explaining during this context. Here, one thing we can see particularly here, that the destruction of the temple, and that's we discussed before, and say Jesus was particularly say gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for the witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Then 15 onwards Jesus was talking. So when you see standing in the holy places the abomination that caused desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. So Jesus was clearly mentioned. So here Jesus was talking when you see that when this marks the starting point of the middle of Daniel 17th week, then the Antichrist will be break his 7 years covenant with Israel and enter Judea to take over Jerusalem and his capital, and the Jewish temple as his capital building. So that's we can see from Daniel 9 to 27. Then and also all this prophecy from this verse 15 on must be fulfilled the last 3.5 years of this age. And along with that we can see the abomination is happening. This refers to the Antichrist and his image in the Jewish temple at Jerusalem during the last 3.5 years of this age. Then along with that we can see verse 16, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountain. Then, when Jesus Christ entered Judea and takes over the temple, Israel will have to flee from Judea into Edom and Moab, which escaped the Antichrist. Let Israel flee from Judea without taking time for valuable lest they be overtaken by Antichrist armies. So this like purely talking about the Antichrist in the different ways, and especially when you are looking on verse 19, it say, and woes unto you that pray that your flight will not be at that time, and also the pregnant woman and the nursing mother. It's quite hard if you are run away for during the winter or the Sabbath. It's like quite hard during that time. It will be hard on the woman with the children or those who grade with the child to flee before the sweetness of the invaders. Pray that the inversion will not take place in winter, as it would be difficult to flee without preparation at this time, nor on the Sabbath, because Orthodox Jewish hold it unlawful to travel more than a mile during that time. That we can clearly see in the Act 1 verses 12. Then when we are looking on verse 21, for then there will be a great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never be equaled again. That's one of the thing we can see. For then the great tribulation of the last 3.5 years of this age will begin. Then curtail the persecution itself will be cut short. So it won't be the particular date or time they were talking about. And when you are looking on verse 22, they were elect, talking about the elect's sake, or the elect, those days will be shortened. But the elect is not the church members, it's just like a Jewish, because there are some evidence we can see. Jesus is answering a Jewish question, and false Messiah primarily concern Israel. Anti-Semitism proves it, and travail of Israel, the abomination of desolation concern Israel only. The Jewish temple, it's all this talking about is Jewish, not the church. And also we can see when the church will be raptured before the above events, and the hinders of the lawlessness, and rapture before the Antichrist. when we move forward, we can see in the verse 23, at the time that anyone says to that, look, here is the Messiah, or there is, do not believe it. And then during the great tribulation days, we don't believe that one. And satanic power will be manifest in the tribulation, the many phase. The false Messiah and false prophet will be appear and perform great signs and the wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. The elected one maybe can deceive by many things. See, I have told you ahead of time. So Jesus Christ is warn us and to help us to be more and more aware about these kind of things as a secret chambers. Jesus is revealing where the dead bodies are slain at Armageddon, the birds will be gathered together to eat them. That's a Job, and so we can see all these things. And when we go to the verse 29, immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the star will be fall from sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken, all in immediately vicinity of Jerusalem, including the armies of nations surrounding the city. Many will not see this see Christ until he is here beginning reigning, and the saints take over all the parts of the earth. The people will go up to Christ. And when we clearly see on the verse 30, then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then the people of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the cloud of heaven with the power of great glory. So that's one of the ambition, not ambition, is like a promises of every believer that the Son of Man will become with the power and great glory. And here we can see the Son of Man, see with the natural eyes, therefore it is not a spiritual coming. So then so we can see from the natural eyes itself. Then the clouds, he went away in the cloud and he will return with them. That's Acts 1 verses 9 to 11 we can see. And coming in power of sufficient to defeat the armies of earth or Satan and all his fallen angels and demons is in one day. And little angels accompanying him to earth to gather Israel and separate the tears from the wheat. Uh, because wheat and weeds, we can see that one, all the weeds which he is gathered, so he just eliminate, or he wipe all the tears from their eyes. Little angels accompanying him to earth to gather Israel and separate the tears from the wheat. Trumpet always sounded at gathering of Israel, and that's a trumpet is the predicted in Isaiah 18 verses 3. This is not the same as the seventh trumpet of Revelation, but the trumpet is connecting connection with the resurrection and the righteousness. Then from the direction of the earth, the first five parables of Matthew 24 to 25, the fig trees illustrate the nearness of his return. These are the last five parables in Matthew. It is universal interpretation to mean the Jewish nation, but the cloud not possibly be the meaning. Just like a fig tree putting forth the leaves indicate the summer is near. So likewise the sign of leaf indicate the nearest Christ coming. This is all that this mean. So they use a few fig leaves to represent the certain events of Israel is just unscriptural as to pick a few oak leaves to represent truth about the Gentiles. That's verses 32. We can see the fig trees, lesson from the fig tree and twigs get tender, the story. And it is universal interpretation mean the Jewish nation, but the cloud not possible, that one. The second advent not rapture, which is not core referred in Matthew 24 to 25. Therefore, there are no signs of the rapture, for it is itself one of the greatest signs of the second advent. There are no prophecies to be fulfilled before the rapture, for it is could have taken place at any time in the past or can take place at any time in the future without any signs of prophecy coming to pass. All signs to be coming of Christ pointing to the second advent and not the rapture. So that's one of the great things, like heaven and earth will pass away, but many words will But my words will never pass away. That Jesus said that one, he will come soon. May God bless you. Amen.